Residents of Brookfield were shocked this afternoon by the broad daylight murder of Bruno Sauls.
The court accepts the existence of God every time a witness swears to tell the truth. I think it's about time they accept the existence of the devil.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Hello, all you gigolos. Welcome to Garbage In, Garbage Out. I'm your host, Kelton, and I'm joined, as always, by my amazing co-host, Grift. How's it going, buddy?
It's pretty good, as always. You know, checking in from the home of occult, happenings in America, New England. So my mea culpa is that the devil made me grift.
It is, I think, always a pretty fun thing whenever your particular part of the world gets highlighted in any movie whatsoever. I'm not sure that anything like in Houston is probably going to be a good thing, but, there's not like the Salem witch trials references that come all the way out here, so I consider it kind of a wash. Now, joining us this week, though, we have Evan from the socialist film podcast Kino Lefter. How's it going, sir?
Hello, Kelton and Grift. I am doing well, and I'm excited to join your program today.
Excellent. I need you to redo that line just to sound a little bit more like a hostage reading from a prompter.
I am very pleased to make an appearance on this program. I've been a big fan ever since
there we
it started.
Holding up today's newspaper to prove that it's legit.
It's tricky hosting a podcast, right? Because I don't want my tone to be excited epic YouTuber, but I know that there's a big contingent of listeners who just want to listen to my beautiful, alluring voice, right? So you have to hit every possible demo with my delivery. So we'll see what we can do on this episode.
Exactly. One foot into each world, as it were. So
and coming from the other side of a relatively new podcast compared to what Kino Lefter has been doing for a while now. I've been listening to you guys for a minute now. So it's, being able to have you on the show, it's awesome.
Yeah. I think my first episode of Kino Lefter that I listened to, y'all were going through on Godzilla King of the Monsters. And that was when the Big Moth GF title was in there. I'm like, this is beautiful. This is exactly the type of thing that I need. So, we can talk about your podcast, though, probably in a little bit, as things go along. You're always doing cool things. I love the idea of what you're doing. Planet of the Apes series on Patreon, right? How's that going for your mental health?
Oh, it's going quite well. I'm a pretty big fan of the Planet of the Apes films. I haven't seen the Tim Burton one, so that's going to be a bit of a new experience for me. But
are you a fan of Mark Wahlberg? That's the larger question.
Absolutely. The whole Wahlberg family and everything they serve up, including Wahlburgers. I'm always there. I'm interested in that one. I think we're on about movie 4 at this point. They're coming out bi-weekly
Perfect.
In the Patreon feed. And we just finished up a Saw marathon.
Yeah. 3
episodes worth of that. I watched basically all of the Saw movies in 2 sittings, which I wouldn't recommend anyone do. But the movies were fun. They have their ups and downs like anything else.
Sure. I mean, it is weird because the Saw franchise has spawned all of these creatives that I think have gone on to what people mostly consider to be better projects. I forget who his name, but the writer of Saw, he's the guy who then did Upgrade and then did the Invisible Man remake. And then, of course, James Wan has done Insidious, but then also like Aquaman and then the Fast and the Furious movie. So maybe not necessarily better in terms of quality, but certainly bigger with a lot more moving parts to it than 3 people in a room and then detectives have to investigate. So, Saw, I think, is going to be one of those things that people look back on as being like a big influence, if not already looking back on it, which I'm sure you're covering in all of those sorts of things. We don't need to be talking overly about James Wan, though, because we're talking about Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. This is the latest movie from the Conjuring universe, which is apparently like the MCU for horror nerds. At least that's what I'm going to start calling it until they tell me not to. What's y'all's familiarity with all of the movies in the universe?
This is the first time I've conjured myself, so I can't compare it to the first two ones.
Okay,
but I could tell it's obviously playing with the tropes of the demonic possession genre. And I think a lot of the criticisms of it are that it doesn't really stray beyond the sort of well established themes of this sort of type of movie, and it didn't really offer anything new here to see.
Definitely. I mean, it certainly does seem like it's kind of like a twice reheated a dinner entree a little bit. But for some people, everyone needs baby's first horror movie. And so this is probably that for someone who is logging into their parents' HBO Max account at 12 or 13 and is like, whoa, this is blowing my mind right now. Satan and demons? Crazy. What will they think up next? But this thing is the 9th movie overall. So they have 3 Annabelle movies, The Nun, then The Curse of La Llorona, which I think is fascinating because there was a movie called The Curse of La Llorona, which is this and not very good. And then they have the La Llorona movie, which I believe won best foreign film, or at least was nominated at the Oscars, which I have seen that one and not fully The Curse of La Llorona. I say fully because I stopped watching it halfway through. It was unbearable to me. It was so go watch the good one called La Llorona. It'll be the one with all of the awards and not internet reviewers giving 5-star reviews that they put on the DVD cover, I think is the only difference really between the two. This movie, though, Conjuring 3, is made by the guy who directed Curse of La Llorona, though. So it's still an in-studio, in-house thing. James Wan, who was the director for the first 2, is just producing kind of from afar. But this is the handpicked heir apparent. And it kind of feels like if James Cameron gave the keys to the Avatar franchise to Mick G, at least. That's my personal comparison. Now, Evan, what's your familiarity, and then what's your opinion on how this stacks up to the other Conjurings?
So this is my 3rd Conjuring.
Good.
I watched the first one probably last year. I thought it was fine. I know these movies have their followers, and some people will swear by them, but I thought it was okay. It was decent enough. And I watched the second movie today.
Perfect. Yeah.
I also similarly thought it was fine. It was a passable haunted house movie. Some of the scares are okay, but I think and I haven't seen any of the spinoffs. I'm fully aware of Annabelle and all of her feature films and, The Nun. But I think that the Conjuring movies are really interesting because they're this sort of merger of studio thinking. Obviously you got James Wan in there. He's a visual maximalist. He loves making big studio movies, and I think he can do a lot of great stuff with them. And there's also this sort of idea of resuscitating this genre of demonic possession and haunted house movies and everything else. And of course, it's all sort of wrapped up in franchise building.
Of course, yeah.
Watching the second movie especially was tough because it felt like you were going from room to room, going oh, and you'll never believe this exciting ghost that we have for you, whose origin story we have just around the corner. So there's
also literally a hallway. Sorry, don't mean to cut you off, but the Warrens have a massive room full of all these artifacts that is just their spin-off factory. It's amazing to me how they have this constructed.
The marriage of the Warrens and their sort of whole business empire storytelling from ghost stories with a post MCU franchise strategy. It's a very nice meeting, and this is what we get kind of meh to pretty bad horror movies every year from the masterminds over at the Conjuring Factory. So I'm excited to tune in yet again. Like, I didn't see Curse of La Llorona, but I heard it was like incredibly bad.
Yes.
Like, I've only seen the trailer, and if you haven't, don't watch the movie, but watch the trailer. Like, it is incredibly stupid. But will I watch it? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I would recommend that for pretty much all of the Conjuring verse movies. Is that if like just watch the trailer, you'll get the gist of it, because you have to treat it like episodes of a TV show versus like as an actual movie, and that really is kind of like the MCUification of it. Because at least for me, this movie felt like an X-Files episode that just ran for 2.5 hours at least, and that was kind of my own personal takeaway, because when you get like the crossover events that take place in this cinematic universe of, whoa, the Warrens are appearing in the third Annabelle film, I can't believe it. It's like, oh my god. Okay,
I can believe it.
Yeah, it's like when Iron Man showed up in Civil War. Yay, go Captain America, or whatever the fuck. It just seemed like it was kind of, okay, more of the same. It's the fast casual to everything else's fast food that has existed in the found footage genre. So I guess I can't complain, just like how in superhero movies I can't complain like about the action scenes, but it doesn't excuse like the copious amounts of military propaganda that exists throughout. I don't need those trappings for it.
Yeah, as like someone who both didn't have experience with the Conjuring verse beforehand, and now hearing about how this demonic crime fighting duo, the Warrens, are showing up in other movies in this MCU thing. Like, are they involved with the production at all? Because it seems like this is pretty heavy-handed Warren propaganda at this point.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, like it is. They are going hard on their real life satanic panic grift, which must have fueled what was going on with them in real life, because to actually like use demonic possession as a courtroom defense, that's just going next level.
Hey, like, who needs separation of church and state, Grift? Come on. Like, it's an important thing. Yeah, I'm gonna include it in like the little like blurb of the movie trailer that I put at the beginning of these episodes. But there's a line that basically goes, well, every time someone comes into the courtroom, we have them swear on the Bible that they believe in God. Don't you think it's time they believe in the devil? I'm like, yes. oh my god. Oh, okay, well, so this is where we're going here. Like, couldn't we just have a good old-fashioned horror movie, one with like hot teens who are having premarital sex and then they get punished for it, instead of like Ed Warren's demand for a theocracy to start to take over? This isn't just like Warren propaganda, this is like Catholic Church propaganda. So like it's next level a little bit here. Because at least as far as I know, Ed's wife Lorraine, she was a managing consultant, or whatever kind of like bullshit term you would want to use, as a specialist who would give notes on the movie and on how things actually were, until she died in 2019. So, rest in piss to her. She's probably hanging out with Elvis and Reagan at this point.
Well, she deserves it. She was fighting for the forces of good in her long spiritual war against Satan and the deep state. I don't have to get into all of that. I'm sure your listeners are aware.
Oh, very, very, very incredibly trad podcast that we have here. I'm just, it's just weird because like she's doing the same shtick that the guy from Psych does about like, oh, I'm having a vision. Whoa, oh no, it's crazy. And then they're like, but what if it was real, huh? What would those flashbacks actually look like? I don't know. Again, if anyone is wondering like how much they gloss up the Warrens, look at the actors who play the Warrens, and then look at how the Warrens actually looked like. And then that is the same amount of glow up that they give the Warrens in terms of their reputation, in terms of how likable they are. It just kind of across the board. Like, I have no doubt in my head that the Warrens probably loved each other, but they absolutely were grifters.
During the 80s, during the satanic panic, that was like what you were doing. if you were in this sort of industry, that was a hot time for it. Just like nowadays, if you're a Twitter Epstein researcher, that's where the money is. That's where the clout is. Investigating demonic possession because some guy killed his landlord while listening to rock music in the 80s. That was the grift at the time. So you got to respect it for the for them riding the zeitgeist of that era. So,
I mean, I wanted to make a joke about like, well, how soon until we get like an Epstein horror movie? But then I remember that movie you were telling me about with Dasha from Red Scare, that she's going to be in it. It's like a haunted hotel that's like Epstein. The ghost of Epstein or something. It was like a small apartment, a former like Epstein flop house that's rented to two downwardly mobile New York City bohemians. Nice. I was able to obtain a screener copy recently, and it was pretty good. I mean, it would definitely be one to talk about when it officially comes out. Exactly.
But,
that is something that we will definitely legally go through all the correct and proper channels to achieve that. So I look forward to the incredibly fair indie price of $175 to go ahead and get that indie screener to do this episode. Something I look forward to a lot.
A lot of people have been wondering if the movies are back, and I think we can safely say, yes, movies are back, and they are here to stay.
AMC stock is proving it. It's a wonderful time for all the diamond hands. We are holding
out for $500K. We're not selling for anything less.
This whole like pandemic experience, by the way, at least specifically with HBO, like when they did day and date releases of all of their theatrical stuff, to then also say, well, hey, it's going to be on HBO Max, so you can go into theater or you can watch it here if you subscribe. It's making me realize like all of HBO and Warner Brothers slate is basically direct to DVD quality stuff, because there's not a single thing that I've watched that I'm like, man, I wish I could have seen that on theater or in theaters instead of on my giant screen.
It's very funny that you bring that up, because I did an episode of my own podcast when this sort of like strategy was announced, and at Warner Brothers they were very open to it, because they were like not at all very happy with the slate of movies that they had coming out this year. So it just made financial sense for them to be like, you know what, you can watch it at home. And then now all of these movies, instead of like being theatrical flops, are now talking points, because everyone is stuck. Because at least I know in America some things are opening up, but we got to still wait a little bit longer in Canada. Like we do not have our movie theaters open right now. So everyone is sitting around their kitchen tables talking about Mortal Kombat. They're talking about The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, and it's congratulations to Warner Media / Discovery or whatever the hell they are now. I was about
to say, the strategy works so well that AT&T has said, "Fuck Warner Bros. We're selling you to the people who do HGTV."
It's so funny.
Yeah, they're getting so much money that they could afford to pay a legitimate graphic designer for that new logo they have. I don't know if you guys saw that.
It's so stunning. Like the Warner Brothers shield is probably like one of the most recognizable logos in like, the business. And then they're like, you know what? We will replace this with some just a yellow font. I think that's a really wise decision. The whole AT&T thing is also pretty funny, because my only experience with knowing that Warner Media was owned by AT&T was how the Snyder fans would always tweet at AT&T going like, hey, you're the money people. You're going to give Ben Affleck his Batman movie, right? And they're like, yes, we'll be right on that. And then they sold Warner Media. So it's pretty good how the business works.
Yeah, it is pretty fantastic, because now instead of them spamming Sesame Street tweets that come out, it's them trying to go after the Property Brothers and get them to restore the Snyderverse. So
we have kidnapped one of the Mythbusters. If you do not answer our demands for Justice League 2, The myth will be busted.
Yeah, it's the Snyderverse a myth. Time to play a game.
Yeah, leave it to the Snyder fans to be Lester pilled and following the money. But I just to go back to what you guys were talking about earlier about the direct to DVD quality of these things. I think the one exception I would say would be Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah,
because I got a chance to see that at a local drive-in a couple weeks ago, and I went with some old high school friends. We hadn't seen each other in a while. We were riffing the whole time. It was a grand old time at the drive-in. So I think that was the one sort of grand cinematic experience that works both on the direct to streaming service and on the big screen there.
And yeah, I guess I do need to amend that because I know we do have sometimes a younger audience of people who are in college and all that. And yeah, if you guys decide to go see Conjuring 3 in the drive-in theater, you get bored halfway through, then start giving each other hand jobs. Like, yeah, that's what it's intended to do. Like, good for you. Proud of y'all for doing that, because I think that's kind of what happens. Yeah, the magic. Where's that in the AMC theaters promo package, huh?
Sergei Eisenstein understood this, right? Like the Soviets knew this very well. So you just have to look at all the books. You have to go to film school for a few years, and that's what movies are largely for, is getting a horrible hand job.
I think is also how I would describe this movie. So I think it's time for us to dive a little bit into the plot, because it starts off hot and heavy. We opened in 1981. There's Ed Warren, who I'm going to call Ocean Master from Aquaman, because that's his highest grossing movie. So that's great. And then of course his wife, also known as the mom from Bates Motel, which I'm sure just is something that she loves. She's been awarded so many things, but again, I'm not going to give them the service of this. You're Ed and Lorraine Warren to me. Anyway, they're trying to get a demon out of the kid who was in WandaVision. So, wow, just a real star-studded trio of actors that we get here. And then in an homage, I'm going to put homage in air quotes here, because it's definitely not just stealing on a shot-by-shot basis of a much better movie, of a reference to The Exorcist. A priest arrives by taxi, and then he's trying to help out with the exorcism, and then just gets KO'd by a bunch of plates. So, I'll give it. You stole a shot, but then you subverted expectations. And anytime I see a Catholic priest getting railed in the head, I'm gonna give you the thumbs up, the go ahead sign for it.
They committed the cardinal sin of, you don't reference a much better piece of media, especially right out the gate in yours. But I mean, here we are having someone from Kino Lefter on, so we're committing that sin as well.
Exactly. You don't bring someone from a much better film podcast on. That's a cardinal sin. That's why we stick to just like comedians and druggies. Come on now.
Yeah, that's why I will never do it. Mark Kermode, you will never be invited onto my show. I do not want to hear it. But the opening was definitely a tough moment for me. I was doing the dishes and I had the movie on my laptop while it was happening, and I got mad because The Exorcist, I think, is arguably one of the greatest films ever made, and it's one of my personal favorites. And then I think that these movies work well when they sort of operate in a little bit more of an ambiguous, was it all in their heads or was the demon real? But then the CGI made everything look so weird, and there's steam coming out of people, and I was just like, okay, I can focus on the dishes right now. I can catch up on this shit later.
Yeah, I was laughing through much of that scene, especially when the guy got hit with the plates.
So good. That's really what I if anything is watchable, it's the first 6 minutes, right up until Priest gets hit in the head with plates. Yeah, goddamn, it's fantastic. I mean, it does kind of make me also wonder about in the tier of demons. Because you have the demons who make people be able to control the weather. And then you have other ones that are oh, he's kind of super strong. And then you have what this one ultimately was, which is a contortionist demon. That's kind of, I don't know, low powered ultimately. Because I understand that they're a supernatural being and it's scary, but it's also still an 8-year-old child. And like, I feel pretty confident in my ability to take out an 8-year-old, like if all else fails. I don't know about y'all.
Yeah, I mean, you could easily trick it. You could give it some Fortnite, like, and then you sit it down, and you're just like, "Look, it's all of your favorite Marvel heroes and Master Chief. They are together." And then you can start to see like the white fade from their eyes, and their pupils are coming back. Like, these Warrens, like, I mean, obviously they had much more limited technology to work with. We hadn't invented Fortnite by then, but
That's Pong.
You have to think like them.
Yeah, would you rather fight a 8-year-old possessed by a demon or a demon possessed by an 8-year-old?
Oh, demon possessed by an 8-year-old, easy. Yeah, because like they have those. Some of them have like those spindly legs or whatever, but instead of like stop motion, like running towards you in a hallway, you can just like punt it. You can just like body slam it into a wall. They're 8. They don't know anything about the world or combat.
Mm-hmm. And that's then kind of where like the premise of the movie really kind of kicks off, because things go haywire, and then we see the demon get talked into jumping into the body of the little boy's sister's boyfriend named Arnie, and that's where I was like, don't give him like a capable body to operate with. Like that doesn't seem any good. Like that, yeah, but fine, whatever. So Arnie makes the deal with the demon, but Ed sees this, but he has a heart attack because he's a white guy in 1981, and he goes to the hospital. And so then while Arnie's not feeling well and is kind of starting to hallucinate a little bit, Ed is in the hospital, and he comes to, and he's like, "Oh, you won't believe what I saw, Lorraine. We have to tell them to go get Arnie. Something bad is about to happen." And then wouldn't you know it, Arnie stabs his landlord 22 times because he's hallucinating. Yeah, exactly. Right? Is it really a crime? Evan, weigh in on the legal ramifications here. You're taking the LSAT, I believe, right?
Yes.
Okay, so killing your landlord, a crime?
In the eyes of God, perhaps not. In the eyes of the law, yes. But can you get away with it? Absolutely. If you're able to sufficiently prove that it wasn't you, and it was in fact, a spiritual entity from the other side.
Yes. And even if you're not able to, for some reason, you'll only, serve 5 years.
Slap on the wrist.
Yeah, I wonder what would happen like if Arnie was like a black teenager who killed his landlord. Like, I don't think Arnie would be getting out ever. Is my assumption here. He
would actually have got the death penalty instead of the five or so years. He got, able to marry his girlfriend in prison. Got off relatively light.
Would not have worked well, but. In the scene where he's killing the landlord, it's interesting because he is hallucinating and seeing that the landlord's like acting like a demon or some sort of creature. But then after he kills the landlord, he's possessed by the demon, and he's just kind of zombie walking around until a cop sees him. So I had a question about what y'all thought about the logistics of the possession, because it didn't seem like he was possessed while he was doing the stabbing, but then he was when he was then decided to just kind of Minecraft walk all the way through a fucking field or whatever.
Yeah, it was weird because I actually thought that the vision he was experiencing pre-murder was pretty solid. It was spooky enough. But then it just feels like a trailer shot when he's walking down the road.
It was
because I saw it in the trailer. Because it has absolutely no connection, right? Because you hear this brutal murder, and then the demon, I guess, is like, and now time to walk down a lonesome road and maybe spook a guy who comes across me and then quickly disappear. So none of this fucking movie makes sense. It's not satisfying either. So
also the goal is to then get him to kill himself immediately afterwards, after killing the landlord. Like that's the demon's goal, is to get him to commit suicide. Gee, I don't know. Like you stabbed him 22 times with a knife. It would have been real easy to then just do it right then and there immediately after, but the movie needs to happen. So of course the demon is very respectful of in that time and lets him kind of meander about for a bit. What did y'all think, kind of, bird's eye view here, though, about the idea of what the Conjuring was doing with this movie versus the first two, in the sense that the first two movies are glorified haunted house ventures, and this is trying to take like a based on a true story, like every horror movie is, but then actually dealing with like a real murder that is famous for being like the first, like, the devil made me do it excuse in American history. Like, they're taking a high profile case and then trying to use that as the spawning point for their movie.
Yeah, it's like someone who hadn't seen the first two, I was sort of confused by that tone because it was going for that strange mix of historical, based on a true story type thing, versus, but with these very obvious over the top demonic fantasy elements, and just, more bird's eye view stuff. This, it felt like the aesthetics were very like small town Americana from like the 1950s versus like the actual like 1980s setting. Yeah. And then there's the whole, they're listening to rock music and getting drunk, and so clear references to the sort of satanic panic going on there. But yeah, it was a bizarre combo. The tone never felt quite right. And just overall, like, a lot of it felt sort of tongue in cheek, but then the tone would sort of immediately flip to very serious. So it was a jarring experience overall, I'd say.
Well, I mean, what you nailed it on the head with the idea of, well, it seems like it's the 1950s. Like, I'm looking at, like, Excalibur came out in 1981, meaning canonically Batman's parents were killed the same year that this movie takes place. Something for us to consider. But then also there's like Arthur, Mad Max 2, Escape from New York, etc. Like, that's the era of what the zeitgeist is in terms of like culture with movies. And then this really does seem like there's a sock hop event happening just down the road. Let's go get on our poodle skirts and hang out by the pharmacy for some soda and pop. Yeah. Like that really does seem like the town that they were from. My criticism with the movie in terms of its structure is that I thought that this was going to be a lot more like a courtroom drama. Like, I thought all the scenes that we were watching about like their investigations and stuff would be coming through the lens of it being an actual court case. And so it's kind of like a clip show almost, as the Warrens are testifying, referencing other cases that they've had, and they're all going from the witness seat. But instead, there's actually only like two courtroom scenes that more or less bookend the movie, and then it's just used as a way for us to get on board with the plot, which is witches and Satanists and the occult. Oh my.
It is a very cobbled together movie, and I think that's very clear once James Wan's no longer in the director's chair. You don't have the mind behind Furious 7 working on this. And like this movie has nothing cooler than the cars parachuting out of the plane at the beginning of that movie. But it's like, I thought that I thought this film was going to be about like the media circus and the trial and everything, because that's what it's kind of marketed as. But then it's doing this like world building thing of, no, we're actually going to fight this cult of Satanists who, I think, I had to Google it, appeared in the Annabelle movies. So I'm just like, okay, I don't care.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep making comic book comparisons, but they are going to be the Hydra of, I think, the Warrens' world. Like, I think that's what they're legitimately going for. And I see you rubbing your glasses, and that is the appropriate reaction, the soft, subtle bit of disappointment here.
No, I'm just really excited about where franchise films are today. I'm excited whenever I go to the movie theater. It's really epic, right? Because like, I think everyone's really excited to see what the Legion of Goat People or whatever the fuck the bad guys are in this, like what their next evil plot will be. And there's so much lore to learn too, right? That's another exciting thing about this movie is you have to do a lot of homework before you watch it.
Oh, it's great.
The casual viewer might think that this is just a film about, a cult that does some nasty things with a demon, but true fans will have to watch 9 films beforehand and read probably the tie-in comics to understand, where the Conjuring universe is going from here.
And I wish that you were joking, but you're absolutely right, because there's the demon Valak that goes like from Conjuring 2, but then there's also in The Nun and is referenced in Annabelle. Like it just kind of like it all weaves together in some sort of they're viewing it like a tapestry, but it's more like a noose that is being made here with strands of rope. Man, I did not enjoy it, but regardless, to get kind of back to the plot here, the Warrens decide to do their MacGuffin hunt, and so they're retracing their steps, and they meet this old guy who was a former priest. He's played by the dude from Fringe,
the legend himself, John Noble.
That's right, aka the guy who you cast when he is going to be either evil or shady as hell. Like that's what he is, because he's like, I'm just a simple pharma priest. I have chicken shit on my hands. Come down to my basement where I have like a hallway of horrors about the occult that I did research on for 15 to 20 years. Don't worry about it. I'm giving you a wave of exposition about this random occultist who I definitely don't know and definitely am not related to. Like that's his whole shtick. And I called it right then and there. I was like, okay, yeah, like it's him, or he has like a secret child because he's a former priest. Like that's the two ways that this thing goes in any horror movie involving the Catholic Church.
Yeah, that's sort of that Chekhov's creepy old guy. It reminded me a lot of the guy at the end of Zodiac, the like handwriting expert guy.
Yes.
Where it's like, okay, this is obviously either like a very obvious ploy to set up this creepy guy and to artificially generate some suspense, or this is actually the guy. So, and I think it was very obvious in this, at least, that he wasn't the main occultist guy. I never got that sense. I didn't think it was set up very convincingly for the twist to be, oh, this guy is the main bad guy. So I think it sort of failed to generate the suspense that it may have been going for with that. With that plot element.
They were trying though, Griff. They gave him a murder basement, and like what more can we expect? Like it just feels like this is something that almost got old and stale like 30 years ago, because the whole trope of like, can you believe it? Such a great man of faith might be evil, and it's like, well, yeah, like we find out every day that pillars of our community are like abusers and monsters. Like that's what being online is all about. Like there's not this like idea of something so sacred to it, and so it just didn't work on me, at least as the idea of surely nothing bad could be associated with this person. I don't know. But that might just be kind of my solo gripe about it. But don't worry, we're not supposed to think about it too long, because they get a phone call, or I forget exactly how they're told, but they're told about two girls, one who went missing and the other one who was stabbed 22 times. The number 22, it's a giveaway. And so they travel from Connecticut to Massachusetts to meet with a detective, and then they end up finding a totem at the girl's friend's home. The interesting idea that I thought that this movie had for a split second was that the Warrens thought that the detective was bringing them in to help them solve their case, when in reality the detective was going, that guy stabbed his landlord 22 times. I have someone who got stabbed 22 times. Like, let's see if we can link these two cases, which is good detective work, plain and simple. And the Warrens are acting like he's crazy. How could he not just trust the two grifters instead?
It's how real police work gets done. Often you'll find yourself, in a position where you're like, okay, I need to trust this medium with solving this murder. And it's a real thing that happens every once in a while. Like, you'll hear stories about like, like this case has been cold for years. So then, this person hired a medium. And it's like, it does sort of speak to the fact that most of the clients of these people are, people who are deeply traumatized and are, not being helped by any other strata of society. But sometimes they have superpowers which can help them solve murders. So I think that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, and anytime I see stories about that, my first thought never is like, wow, the medium solved it. My first thought always is, well, I guess they really did do shitty police work because they were able to immediately find new clues when they actually were forced to pay attention to the details of the case file.
It was hilarious because it was like, I think you should go to the river that's right next to the site where this person was stabbed and look if a body went downstream from there. And the cop's like, my God, you've got it.
We've checked 3 times and we haven't been able to find it. We checked that cliff because, yeah, that's exactly what she says. Like, well, one girl got possessed, stabbed the other one, and then she jumped off of a cliff. And that's what happened. I mean, it just seemed weird to me. It was also kind of bizarre because I was getting very like couple vibes. I don't know if it's because it's Pride Month or whatever, but I was like, look at these 2 girls who are such good friends. They're going in the woods together. They're sharing secrets. They're, just the best of friends. Imagining Lorraine Warren, conservative Lorraine Warren, not being able to recognize clearly 2 lesbian women in a relationship is just a delight to my imagination.
Hey, that's what happened with the Salem witch trials. It's a sex panic all the way down. But to go back to the whole medium cop relationship. I think when the average person they hear the branding of defund the police, what their immediate thought is who will hire the services of mediums? You're going to destroy an entire industry there. And
the left needs an answer for that.
Yeah. It's an attack on small business, and I think they really need to do some real soul searching about how they're going to frame that to your average hardworking American.
Yeah, that is something that I think is going to be a key voting issue in 2024. So when presidential nominee Kamala Harris decides to means test some mediums with a new innovative plan, I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know what's the equivalent over in Canada. Does the NDP have someone who would decide to get on board with witches or anything?
What? I don't think there's a pro witchcraft caucus at the New Democrats. Unfortunately, there's a lot of grassroots excitement about how we can tap into occult energies to dethrone Justin Trudeau.
Perfect.
And Aaron O'Toole and the Conservatives out of Parliament. So yeah, there's a lot of thinking going on around that.
Excellent. I'm glad that y'all are game planning, at least in some capacity, because I got to tell you, our witchcraft caucuses down here, we've been working overtime. Unfortunately, most of the witches are also racist, so it doesn't end up panning out too well. But,
classic duo, racism and witchcraft.
Yeah, I could honestly see like Marjorie Taylor Greene having a witch on staff more than any person involved with the Democrats.
Again, the fact I need to mention it because I think people forget about it. Reagan's passing, I think it's like 17 years to the day, happened a few days ago. But he had an astrologer in his cabinet that was giving him advice on like real world policy issues and foreign policy things. And everyone was just seemingly cool with that happening, just madness in terms of a presidency. Fuck that guy. Okay, so the Warrens, they decide to, I guess, they found out all the information from the woods. Ed has chased Lorraine around, even though he has a cane, and he's like trying not to have another heart attack all the time. That's like his ticking clock, basically, that he's dealing with the entire time. So they go to a funeral home. They examine one of the bodies of the girls, and that's when Lorraine uses her X-Men powers to find the occultist, who basically looks like the evil twin version of Lorraine. Like, I know I deal with face blindness famously on the show, but like they really look similar in a lot of ways to me. And so I thought that was going to be like a big reveal of like Lorraine was battling a personal demon that was appearing as her for a second. And then like, no, it's just some other skinny older woman with dark hair. Fantastic. Love it to death.
Yeah, and it looked more like the actual Warren than the actress who played her.
Hey, since that bitch died, they're finally allowed to say like what she was like offset. Get someone who's a dead ringer for her.
Just like that, like large possessed like guy looked looked like the actual Ed Warren. As opposed to like Patrick Wilson. Yeah.
God damn. Man, it had a little bit of everything, like what would it not be if it wasn't Ed trying to stab what he thought was like a giant demon, but turned out to be his wife twice, or him having to tackle a corpse and then like the coroner coming in and wondering what the fuck happened. Why did they move a body all the way over? Simple, unexplainable things that I think keep on taking place. Point is, the scene establishes that the visions are a two-way street. So if Lorraine can see the occultist can see Lorraine. And isn't that crazy? Isn't that wild? And then their assistant Drew, who's been in like all these movies but hasn't had like a featured scene really, he gives them a plot ex machina witchcraft book, like literally handing them this is your key to the third act right here. To Ed, and then says that in order for the curse to be lifted, you have to destroy the occultist altar. Like, wow, okay, It's
a really convenient way to end like a blood spell on somebody. It's like, you have to break a table.
Yeah.
Like, I'll do that. I will break a table. That seems like if you're making a deal with a literal demon who has come from hell itself to like get a soul from you. You have to have a better insurance policy than just like, I pray to God no one like leans on this table wrong or something, and then it fucking breaks.
Yeah, it's like the equivalent of that age-old, conservative American fantasy of, if someone were to break into my house, oh my God, I would go fucking apeshit on them with whatever weapon was available.
I would cast so many spells, bro. So many.
The equivalent of that for like a leftist Twitter guy is like, my God, if you gave me a sledgehammer and let me loose in the temple on Little St. James, man.
It just seems like the altar being destroyed is also kind of like such like an obvious thing, like in the world of satanic rituals or anything else. Like, have y'all seen Quiet Place Part 2? Or like,
not yet.
I've not yet. No.
Well, again, I'm not going to go into too many spoilers. But they find out, rightfully so, that like you can kill the monsters by shooting them in the fucking face. And like, oh wow, took you how many years to figure out that?
That's like the first thing you try, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, what if we used a large bullet and put it through its brain? Perhaps that would, I'm forgetting the thing that had this in it, but it's like, oh no, like bullets, my only weakness.
Yes, exactly.
Very sharp objects.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it works in general for most things, supernatural or otherwise. Demon attacking you, cut that 8-year-old's head off. You'll be fine. An old woman attacking you, cut her head off. You'll be fine. It's universal, at least.
That reminds me. Do any of you own swords?
No, I don't. I'm not a sword guy, unfortunately.
I do not own one myself, but the room I'm currently subletting, the owner of the main leasee has like some sort of machete in a sheath hanging on the wall. So yeah. So that's the closest I own to an actual sword.
Because I'm coming up with a theory that sword ownership is a lot like gun ownership, and your chances of dying by that sword or killing your stepfather and or your brother in a fit of gaming rage goes up quite a bit if you're a sword owner. But in the off chance that a ghost becomes corporeal, or a really tough 8-year-old is running at you who's possessed by,
I don't want people to think I'm pro killing an 8-year-old. I'm talking about like a real mean son of a bitch 8-year-old.
Yeah,
okay?
Killing the right 8-year-old who is, beyond repair, right? If they're like, Dylan's not coming to the phone right now, it's just me and I'm dragging you to hell. I'm like, well, sorry, it's you first. Like, I'm not ready.
Live by the sword, die by the sword. You know, if that 8-year-old's been acting up and the Ritalin isn't doing its job, you gotta resort to certain measures.
That man, I'm now just having an envisioning sequence. It's like that movie Extraction where Chris Hemsworth is fighting and he's just beating the Christ out of all those children. Just now imagining, well, what if they had demons in them? That makes it pretty cool. You know, I'd be in favor of that movie. Priest Chris Hemsworth. Let's make it happen. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, they end up, Lorraine specifically goes back to the suspicious farmer priest, and then that's when he tells her, like, he confesses. And he's like, yeah, I do have a secret child. And yes, I raised her alone in secrecy. And yes, she was there while I was doing all this research into the occult. And yes, she was fascinated by it. And yes, I explained to her what it was. And yes, she then did end up becoming the occultist. Like, he created a supervillain in a fucking basement. And it's just one of those things that kind of gets passed off. So, pish posh, whatever, hand wave. Almost. And it's like, no, I think that would have at least been worth a cutaway. I would have liked to see a flashback of some kind, but no, I guess they don't have that. They blew all their money on that sweet John Noble budget. So they're working with what they got. What did y'all think about? Go ahead.
Yeah, it was really convenient that the guy that they asked for help on the demonic possession stuff, it's his child who's the bad person. I thought that was maybe it's the Force or something. I've been reading a lot of Star Wars Legends books recently. So whenever there's like a horrible like plot convenience where it's like, oh, the bad person, that's my child, I'm just like, the Force works in mysterious ways. But can you use that same excuse in this film of like, maybe there are forces beyond our comprehension in the spiritual realm, manufacturing these events for Ed and Lorraine Warren to, see themselves in? Who's to say?
Well, it's more of that Disney blood magic shit. Like, we know that, liberals control the media and they've been pushing a lot of, woke eugenics lately. And so I think it's just in line with that. It all goes back to magical bloodlines and, race determinism.
Well, y'all, to be fair, Star Wars A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back had both come out at this point. So, I'm honestly surprised that they haven't made a goddamn Star Wars reference throughout, at least to make this happen.
Hire my man, Joss Whedon. He will put some in there. He is not being hired by Warner Brothers anymore, so his dance card is open.
It's real bad when even Warner Brothers won't work with you. Like, wasn't Warner Brothers a studio that was like, listen, that Jeepers Creepers director may have done some bad stuff, but we got to push a sequel through, and who else is going to make it?
Oh, man, I had never watched those movies, and I learned about all of that stuff through the dumbest possible way. There's this YouTube channel called Dead Meat, and there was this quick video of his going like, why I'll never cover the Jeepers Creepers franchise. And I was like, oh, what, he didn't like these movies that I barely remember? And then you find out why, and it's just like, oh, okay, very, very reasonable position to take.
It's because he's a God-fearing Christian man. That's why. That's the reason. That's you can trust us. That's the Gigo promise that we did our full research into the subject, and it's definitely that, not anything much more sinister.
Yeah. Where is the Warner Brothers project directed by Joss Whedon and starring Chris D'Elia? Yeah, I think the moment is right for that.
It's a sequel. There was Age of 17. Now there's Barely 18, I believe.
Oh, Jesus. I'm clutching my rosary right now for this entire episode.
Well, to circle back in, Lorraine then does the stupidest thing that you do in a horror movie. She goes by herself into the tunnels to go try and take on the cultist and have like a psychic battle with her. And then meanwhile, Ed arrives shortly thereafter, but is like possessed because the occultist acts like a fucking third grader who's in a fight with you by blowing dust in his eyes and just gets taken out immediately.
Pocket sand.
It's awful. But Lorraine is able to tell him that love isn't our weakness, it's our strength, which, oh man, classic good film writing right there. So Ed regains his consciousness, and then he takes a sledgehammer to the altar. He smashes that fucking thing like he was auditioning to be Thor. Like, it was just a hell of a scene. Slow-mo, 4 different shots circling and encompassing. It was great. So he saves himself and Lorraine, of course. And then also Arnie, who, again, is also the main reason they're doing this. But I haven't talked about any of the cutaways to him because it really doesn't matter ultimately. Like, he's having a spooky time in prison, but not because of it being like in prison. It's because like there are demons.
It's tricky because I think that the other films sort of have the like likable families who are experiencing like these horrible events like built in. So you can have like this cast of supporting characters that you kind of care about. But in this one, like we cut away to the guy while he's in prison, and he's getting treated like shit by the orderlies there in one scene because he like knocks over a bucket, and it's just like, do you want to clean that up? And I'm like, wow, this film is saying something important about the prison system in America. But no, I didn't really care.
1981 specifically, yeah.
But no, I didn't really care about him. Didn't care about his girlfriend. This guy also looks like one of the most generic YA actors you could possibly get for the role. Like
he looks like a Skarsgård. I thought he was.
You could tell me that this guy played Beast in the new X-Men movies, and I would be like, yeah, of course he did. But
yeah, don't speak ill of Nicholas Hoult, one of the leading actors in To Those Who Wish Me Dead, the Angelina Jolie firefighter movie. Come on,
an extraordinary picture.
Yeah, like just that in that whole, Ed getting possessed and then, having to overcome it through remembering what he loves. It took me back to Lib Brain, some like Voldemort possessing Harry Potter shit, but again, then gets vanquished because he remembers that he can love people. And it's like, God damn it. Like, my eyes are rolling back into my head like I'm possessed myself.
Hey, we're all groaning, but Pete Buttigieg is getting psyched up for the sequel as we speak. I'm just kidding. He doesn't know what love is. It hasn't been programmed into his tiny puppy killing body. So the occultist is then able to face off IRL against the family, or I guess against Ed and Lorraine. And again, it's a frail older woman against the couple. And then a demon comes and then like fucking contorts her 9 ways from Sunday. And then that really made me wonder, like, oh, okay, obviously she dies, and that's bad. I guess she's going to hell, right? That's what's implied. It's not like she kind of gets blinked out of existence. But, like, I mean, it just really seemed like she was going to an overly aggressive chiropractor, ultimately, is, like, what happened to her, until, like, the next snap at the very end. It just, I mean... anticlimactic is what I'm saying. Where is the sky beam? You've made an MCU horror movie. Give me the spiritual sky beam, Jacob's ladder, if you will, to be able to make things occur. I don't know. Stairway to heaven. What goes to hell other than a highway? I'm real bad. I'm not good at these things, like horror imagery that people can go down paths. Something make it good is my point. Hollywood. They didn't do it though.
Yeah, have a ride down a boat down the river Styx to Tartarus. But like how, like I was just wondering, like how do these people, like how do their limbs still functioning after going through these contortions and just like bending their body into like crazier shit than the most deranged porno. Like it's just like, how do they not break every like bone, tendon, ligament, like all that shit? And they're just able, like you could see it with the kid in particular. He just returns back to normal. He's able to, hang out on a waterbed and like, and like how is their body just not completely fucked up from that? I know it's horror movie logic, but just, complete breaking of immersion there.
Well, but even like some horror movies, they'll do something about where like the guy is possessed, he then like has his neck cracked or whatever, but he doesn't die because he's being possessed. So like the body is the demon is possessing a dead body at this point, or there's some form of like necromancy. Like there's an easy workaround to make it happen. But yeah, in this world, everyone like immediately recovers because Ed and Lorraine, again, they are able to go to the gazebo of Flashback Wonder where, they spent their happy summer nights or whatever fucking Grease musical world that they lived in at that time was taking place. And then, the movie basically closes out with Ed placing a cup from the altar into their room of spin-offs. So, like, don't worry, the occultist might not be done, okay? It's fine. And then also, like, Arnie only gets convicted for 5 years, which, I think that's honestly the craziest thing in the world. That landlord had to have been like a shitty person all the way through. Like I know in the actual case file they talked about like how it was an argument or whatever, but like 5 years, only 5 years for killing someone, like that seems a little interesting. I want that, especially with the Warrens being involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, particularly because it wasn't just like, oh, they got in an argument. He had a burst of passion and cut him with a knife and he bled out. He stabbed him 22 times. If that's actually what happened in real life, like the fact that he was only able to get off from 5 years, there's an entire, like with only spending 5 years in jail, like there's an entire courtroom drama that's been left on the cutting room floor that honestly, like, I thought would be a more interesting story than what we were given here and could serve as a really good like framing device for the whole thing, because like we were talking about how the tone was sort of all over the place, and at least I felt like it was just jump scare after jump scare. Yep. Like they weren't given any room to breathe or to build some sort of like atmospheric horror environment. Like it reminded me of the first It movie in a lot of ways, like where it was just like immediately going to the jump scare, and then it just kept one after the other, like with Cruella with the needle drops, just no pacing whatsoever. And yeah, I think if they had that courtroom, which is actually like an interesting story, like how they were able to relatively successfully defend someone using this frankly ridiculous argument, that could have made for a more unique film.
That would mean though that they had to actually put some like care and effort into it. And I think Grift, as we've been able to see with franchises just in general, that level of care and creativity just doesn't exist when you're on episode 9 of a franchise. Like it's all turnkey operation at this point, because you have like, here's the things we want to have happen in the movie, and here's point A where we're going to have the character start, and here's where we need them to end at point B. Because the next movie will take over from there. Fantastic. There's your studio notes. Now go make a horror movie, you crazy kids. And then, that they don't take any second or third drafts to make it mean something for the most part.
This is why my family and I, we will be praying immediately after this episode for Fast and the Furious 9 to be the incredible film that we all know it's going to be. It will beat the curse of The Conjuring. It will beat the curse of Star Wars, and it will be a great movie. But we got to get those Our Fathers and Hail Marys in to make sure that happens.
Aren't they supposed to be going to space in this next one? So
it has been teased. Teased. There's a car with a big rocket on it. So, I think I imagine that the car with the big rocket is going to like go up, and then you're gonna be like, they're going to do a space thing, but then it's like going to go by the camera. It's going to be like directed by Justin Lin, and they're saving space for 10.
Yeah, well, we can only pray that it's the Jason X of the Fast and Furious.
Oh my God, please, Grift. Oh, that would be amazing. Are you kidding me? There's a time jump that takes place. Vin Diesel is frozen that comes back 200 years later. Space cars.
Well, it's rumored that they're going to merge the Fast and Furious and Jurassic Park franchises.
That's true.
So we could get dinosaurs in space.
Oh, my yes.
The possibilities are endless.
We will. I mean, like, movies are becoming more and more akin to Fortnite. Like, I am pretty certain that Fortnite is the future of most major entertainment products. So I think not only is Fast and Furious going to cross over with Jurassic Park. Master Chief is going to be in there, as well as Batman and John Wick, and they're going to have to get up to some adventures. And I think audiences are going to be surprised to find out what those adventures are.
Yeah, you're gonna have a giant holographic Travis Scott, doing a pop-up concert at some point.
Well, those will just be beamed directly to your brain soon, which I'm really excited for. Like JoJo Siwa interrupts your morning coffee, and it's just like you can either pay 15 cents to skip this or sit through the 2.5-minute concert experience. And I'm just like,
Jesus Christ,
I don't have any money.
I have still remember how Liz Smith, the Buttigieg campaign sicko, was like, oh, we need to beam Joe Biden hologram into Fortnite. So I think it's both the future of media and the future of politics.
That's awesome. They should have done that.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, why didn't they? Yeah, at this point.
Trump's going to beat them to it in 2024. They're going to get Trump in like the spinoff, like the knockoff conservative Fortnite, because they're going to be like, Fortnite is silencing conservative voices, yada, yada, yada. So Trump is going to have like a rambling 90-minute video where he's, talking about how, Vanity Fair is going down the tubes and everything. And, then gamers will be slaughtering each other in front of a giant holographic Trump. And I think that is pretty good.
Hey,
they're going to put Trump in Roblox.
I was going to go Warzone, but Roblox is somehow much more fitting. I think that
hey,
that
gotta appeal to the youth.
Yeah. Well, now though we get to the very end where we talk about the rating of how many trash cans, 1 to 4. It's like an inverse of stars, people. Again, it's not rocket science, except again, as I'm obligated to mention, about Southland Tales, which is a 4 out of 4 star movie, but also 4 out of 4 trash cans for it. Just the way it operates. But Grift, what are you giving this?
I'd say 2 to 2.5. Technically competent, not embarrassingly made, but like you said, it's very derivative of better movies, full of hackneyed genre tropes. The strange combination of real life events with the over the top fantasy elements. And I wanted to know more about the actual court case. So I was doing some riffing with some people yesterday about how there's absolutely going to be a like terrible movie made about the Capitol riot, probably produced by Sorkin. So we honestly need a Sorkin courtroom drama where the QAnon shaman uses demonic possession as a defense.
Yikes. Oh my God. Yeah. That would, I don't like it, but I can definitely see it, and I can specifically see us covering it too. So that's what hurts me even more inside. Dear Lord, dude. Evan, what about you?
I'm going to give it a solid 2 trash cans. I think there is, like, if you don't really care about the Conjuring universe, or you just need something on in the background while you're doing the dishes or having a particularly terrible shit, then I think The Conjuring The Devil Made Me Do It is good enough for that. Don't use this as date night with the missus, because you might not be happy with how that ends up, because it's not a good enough film. So, but again, like, this is a major misstep, IMO, for the Conjuring universe. Have I seen any of the other films besides for the ones called The Conjuring? No. But I think these work better as, more sort of stripped down haunted house movies. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen The Changeling, but that's like a really incredible version of what these sort of movies could be. I think it came out in the 80s. It's very good, but this was not very good.
That definitely puts it mildly. For me, I definitely am going in the 2 trash cans. I can be bumped up to 2.5, but that requires effort. And ultimately, that means that I'm bringing 3 trash cans out. So that I'm going to keep it crammed to 2, because it was fine. Again, it's baby's first horror movie. Someone's going to like it. It's something you can put on in the background. It's not like a complete waste of space. It doesn't have the Marvelized military propaganda, but it does kind of have the Reagan era satanic panic. So just whatever kind of pushes your buttons more. I think that's going to determine a lot of kind of how garbage you want to consider all of this. But yeah, definitely not a good movie. Not really enjoying it, but thankfully I enjoyed this conversation. Enjoyed this way more than the movie. Notice that's kind of how these things tend to go. But we've gotten to plugs. So Evan, what's going on in your world?
Oh, geez. Well, I host the socialist film podcast, Kino Lefter, recorded in beautiful, sunny Edmonton, Alberta. And we cover newly released films in the main feed. And they're my horrible, mentally debilitating long-term projects are in the Patreon feed. So the Saw series is probably over by the time that this comes out, and Takes from the Forbidden Zone, a 9-part series on Planet of the Apes, continues apace, and I'm having a lot of fun with that. And yeah, you can find it wherever you're listening to this, probably.
Perfect. Grift, what about you? What's happening in the shop?
So the official collab with our promoter handle at Pussy Jihad is out. It is a fantastic piece of art. Go check that out. It is my pinned tweet right now. Definitely one of the coolest pieces I've ever been able to have up in the shop. And also, as far as upcoming collabs, everyone's favorite communist rapper, JJ Demon. We've had him on the show for the Mortal Kombat episode.
Yeah.
His new album, Ghost Gun Red Menace, is dropping sometime in I think in about a week, and I will be doing official merch for that. So be on the lookout for that as well. And I'm super excited to listen to his new project.
Sweet. Again, love JJ, love what he's doing. Happy to see that the tendrils of the shop are going everywhere. So it's a positive thing. Let's see. So in terms of the actual show, be sure that you're following us on Twitter. Also send us your Letterboxd profiles so then we can follow you if you haven't, synced your Letterboxd up to your Twitter. Also, 5-star review on iTunes, I guess, even though iTunes is fundamentally unusable at this point still after the update. So in the meantime, also just be sure that you're following us on Spotify. That just about covers it. So without further ado, let's say goodbye, y'all.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Deuces.